Good morning. My name is Meredith Barber, and I have the pleasure of serving you all as your interim minister here at Horizon. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, more information can be found about our church at our website, horizonuu.org, and we'd love to see your face at our virtual coffee hour. The link can also be found on our website. So I want to welcome you all this morning, and Horizon is what we call in the Unitarian Universalist Association a welcoming congregation. And that means that we believe that queer and trans folks are whole and holy, just as they are. This week, September 23rd is Bisexual Visibility Day, and I wanted to say that for all those who feel maybe unseen in your relationships, for all who don't feel safe yet coming out, for all who might feel misunderstood because of the expansiveness of your sexuality, you have a home here among us where we affirm you just as you are. So welcome, we're glad you're here, and come let us worship together. Our call to worship this morning comes from the writings of the Reverend Margaret Weiss. She writes, "Come into this place with your whole self, the parts that are raw and exposed, the part that is beaming with joy, the part that is seeking the truth, the new, the possibility. Come into this place, open your heart, lay down your burden, lift up your hope for something new to happen. Come into this place with fellow travelers on the journey, some faces new and others familiar, and all welcoming you here now to this moment. Come, let us worship together." We light our chalice this morning with the words of our affirmation, and I invite you to say it with me at home. Love is the doctrine of our church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in harmony with the earth, thus do we covenant together.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, stay with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
This month, you all have chosen to support an organization that we all mostly know as DRUM, which stands for Diverse, Revolutionary, Unitarian Universalist, Multicultural Ministries. This group is a people of color ministry and anti-racist collective that has been central to supporting the ministries of my colleagues of color as well as of lay people. DRUM brings lay and religious professionals together to overcome racism through resistance and to transform Unitarian Universalism through their multicultural experiences. The offering will now be joyfully given and received. Our first reading this morning comes from the writings of Rainer Maria Rilke. Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers, which could not be given to you now because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. I invite you to join me now in a moment of meditation or prayer. Loving God, Spirit of life, mystery of all that is, draw near to us this morning and know our hearts. We give thanks this morning for the chance to be together, to care for our spirits, to take some time to slow down. We give thanks for the chance to open our hearts to the possibilities this morning, knowing that even as we do so, we open ourselves to the unknown. May we learn to live and to love the questions. We are in gratitude this morning for the world around us, for sunsets and cool evenings, for the way we feel held in the world's embrace. We lament this morning that tired, exhausted feeling that feels intent on dragging us downward. Pandemic exhaustion is real. We long to gather together, so much so that it almost hurts. Spirit of justice, be with us in the coming weeks as we work and wonder about how to respond to SB 8. We rise with all who believe in reproductive justice. We rise in solidarity with all who feel violated and controlled by this. We rise with all those making the decisions they need to for their own lives, in every day and in every way. In the coming weeks, help us to move in love and in care for one another, for that is the only way that we survive. May it be so. Amen.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
Our second reading this morning comes from the introduction of a book called Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown that we'll be talking about a bit later this morning. She writes, "To write this, I had to get intimate with what I don't know, with my fears and doubts, with my restlessness. I was very young the first time I felt this restlessness, this sense that how things are isn't right, isn't enough, is empty even. Even as a child, this sense made me nauseous, like dancing around a black hole, praying it's a portal and not a nothingness. As I get older, I understand that it is the unknown, and it is where the most exciting parts of life happen. This is my leap into the unknown." I guess this year will have been my third August in Shreveport, and it's taken me about this long to understand just how punishing the heat can be that time of year. It slows down everything, at least in our house, and really is kind of de-energizing. Not to complain, just to explain a little bit. My husband likes to joke that one day he's going to come out wearing a linen suit and pretend he's Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird. I say all of that to say that no matter where I've lived, September has a kind of magic to it. For most of my life, I was a kid that loved school. I loved the routine of picking out new clothes for school and new school supplies. And I don't know if there are any stationery or pen lovers among us, but the joy of a fresh pen still gets me to this day, especially because I'm someone who writes a lot. When I was a kid, I liked to try out all my pens and arrange them in my pen case. Obviously, I was very cool. But my point is that all these little rituals kind of hang together to create this overarching sense of anticipation and possibility. There is excitement in the air, and for me, September feels so much more like a new year than January. So our Soul Matters theme for this month is embracing possibility. Soul Matters will be our guide to worship this year. There's just been a lot I wanted to say to you all about who I am and about what the interim process is about. So let's get into it. Possibility as a theme feels right for this moment. It captures something in the air this time of year. But it's also a little mysterious, I guess. Maybe, like so many things we're being asked to do right now, embracing possibility is a little bit easier said than done. I would encourage you this morning to hold tight to that childlike sense of anticipation from September's past, and to let that feeling be your guide. To embrace, to open our hearts to something takes trust and energy, and most of all, it takes time. So I invite you to see this as the beginning of an ongoing conversation, one we will revisit again and again while I am with you. One of the important parts of the interim time is inviting you into a space of imagination about the future, of inviting you to dream. And it's also important, too, that we not get bogged down in all the details. And I know this can be really frustrating to those of us who are doers, who want to focus on how we're going to do all the things. I can be a dreamer or a doer, depending on the day, so I get it. But during this time, I will push you a little bit to stay with the big picture, because that gives us information about some of these big questions we're asking during the transition. So many times we forget to dream. We're too busy putting out the fires right in front of us. We as Unitarian Universalists are natural questioners. That's why so many of us are here. We poked and prodded and listened and wondered and asked the hard questions until our faith, or lack thereof, broke open. And we made space for something new, something that we found here in this place. The Rilke reading we heard earlier, I alternate between calling it Live the Questions and Love the Questions, is a classic. It could almost be our Unitarian Universalism elevator speech when someone wonders, what's that? We try to live and to love the questions themselves. We're less focused on the answers. It's also a natural segue toward our covenantal theology, the idea that how we are together is more important than believing the same thing. So part of our work together in this time that I'm here really is to wonder and to question, who are we and who do we want to become? These are the driving questions of the interim process, and in case it's not already obvious, I don't have answers in mind for you. I am here to make space and maybe push you to ask the questions. The answers are up to you. It was tradition at my internship congregation to do what's called a question box sermon. Maybe you all do it here, I don't know. People submit questions, and without having seen them in advance, the minister answers them. In the words of Reverend Sam, my internship supervisor, it's fun for people to see the minister struggle. I would argue that you can see that in many other times and places, but I guess that's a different conversation. We were talking in the question box sermon that we did together about what we would want youth to know, or what messages we needed when we were younger. And he said something like, no one can tell you who you are. No one can tell you who you are as a church either. This discernment is up to you. As I said to our friends at Senior Potluck this week, I don't have a secret list of things I want to come here and change. I believe that change and the need for it emerges organically for one reason or another, and we respond to that need as it comes. For the past few weeks, I've been diving into Adrienne Maree Brown's work, Emergent Strategy. I know that I'm late to the party that is this book, but I'm glad I finally picked it up. It feels very relevant to this time of transition and of pandemic ministry. And that kind of organic need for change is what Adrienne Maree Brown refers to as emergence. She writes, birds don't plan to migrate, raising resources to fund their way, packing for scarce times, mapping out their pit stops. They feel a call in their bodies that they must go, and they follow it, responding to each other, each bringing their adaptations. She continues, there is an art to the flocking, staying separate enough not to crowd each other, aligned enough to maintain a shared direction, and cohesive enough to always move toward each other. Destiny is a calling that creates a beautiful journey. Emergence is beyond what the sum of its parts could even imagine. So I hear in this a call to dream. Emergence is a mandate to listen to what is tugging inside your heart, both as individuals and as a church community of people, striving to love one another well. One of the hopes in this time of transition is that you all will allow yourselves to dream about what your community might become, about who you want to be as people, how you want to treat each other, who you want to be in the world. That's not to say at all that how things are right now is bad or not good enough. That's not true. But I think we all know that the intensity of the world's hurt has been turned up over the past few years. And our call as a spiritual community is to rise to that occasion, to meet the world as it is. Dreaming also doesn't mean that you have a plan in place as to how you'll get there, or even that you will. That's not really the point. Dreams give us information about our collective values as a community. We can ask ourselves, why is that important to you? What would it mean to do that? I don't know all your history yet. And by the way, when I'm asking for stories of history, I'm not just asking for the good stuff. I'm also asking about times of conflict and struggle, times when you as a church weren't sure about your future, times when people left, times when they came back. This stuff isn't always easy to talk about. It can make us anxious and fearful. But it's important that we remember the ways conflict has shown up among us, because awareness of patterns is also part of our growth. I told you before that I visited some of our church elders this week at Senior Potluck, and from what I heard, this church was built on dreams. Dreams of a friendly and engaging, whole family, full week faith. Dreams of being a voice for liberal religious values here in Texas. So let us dream again in this time. The words of Howard Zinn on hope and possibility this week felt affirming to our dreaming work. He writes, "To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness." What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do that, however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory. Amen to that. Lauren, our DLRE, has told me again and again that she's trying to ask what's possible and not what's wrong. It's become almost a language among us, and this quote, of course, comes from educator and organizer Margaret Wheatley and her work Turning Toward One Another. She is also a major source for Adrienne Maree Brown. This work is all connected. And of course, it sounds easy to ask what's possible, but this has had to become something of a mantra among us during these times. It's a natural reframing of the narrative. Our brains would much rather list all the things that aren't going quite right. That's just who we are as human beings. But I think we also hear and feel the call toward change. The reading we heard earlier from the introduction of Emergent Strategy captures, I think, the emotional core of what we're doing here. She talks about that restlessness that lives inside us when we see and know that the way of the world around us is not right. Here it is again. To write this, I have had to get intimate with what I don't know, with my fears and doubts, with my restlessness. I was very young the first time I felt this restlessness, this sense that how things are isn't right, isn't enough, is empty even. Even as a child, this sense made me nauseous, like dancing around a black hole, praying that it is a portal and not a nothingness. As I get older, I understand that it is the unknown, and it is where the most exciting parts of life happen. This is my leap into the unknown. I have felt this restlessness too, this restless knowing since I was a child, just the way she describes, and I would be surprised if you all didn't feel it as well. It takes a questioning, wondering kind of person to pick up on the injustices of the world and on our responsibility to do something. That's kind of what Unitarian Universalism is about, or for me it is. And Adrienne Maree Brown helps us to shift from a place of nauseating fear and anxiety under this deep knowing to a place of excitement and wonder at the possibilities. She writes, "It is our right and responsibility to create a new world." Up until now, our conversation has mostly been theoretical, higher level concepts, and this won't be the last time we engage with Emergent Strategy this year. This text is deep and rich and soulful. There is so much there. But I want to bring it back to you, to Horizon, to this community, and this time of transition, and most of all to your dreams. I told you earlier that I visited our senior potluck crew this week to talk about what interim ministry is and to answer questions. It was lots of fun, and you all certainly ask the difficult things. We talked about my approach to change, listening to different perspectives. We talked about worship and our children, and of course, we talked about when we will get back together. Spoiler, I don't have the answer to that. Remember, we're asking what's possible, not what's wrong. Someone also brought up, though, an excellent point that I think cuts to the heart of what we're talking about this morning. They wondered, how will you ensure a smooth transition to our next settled minister? And of course, the answer is that I can't. That's not within my control. When all is said and done, when the transition is complete, I'll be gone and your next minister will be here. And so will you. The smooth transition is in fact not in my control, but the beautiful thing is that it is in yours. So that's why I'm inviting you to dream about who you want to be, to consider the future of the church, to wonder about what might be possible. Because the more we open our hearts to possibility, the more room there is for someone else to make their way inside. In the words of Octavia Butler, all that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. May it be so. Amen. I invite you to join me this morning in extinguishing our chalice and saying together the words of our mission statement. We extinguish the flame of this chalice, but not our commitment to serve our mission to welcome radically, love boldly, grow spiritually, and serve courageously. We carry this commitment in our hearts because we envision a beloved community filled with compassion, helping all to thrive in a just world. Friends, as we go forth from our time together this morning, I invite you to come dream a dream with me about what this community might become. Go in peace.